Hey everyone, it's your friend and colleague Jesse Green, and you're listening to the Savvy Dentist Podcast. Great to have your company as always. Now, in the last episode, I referenced that today we're going to be talking about landmines and why I was a really bad dog owner. And what I really want to talk to you today about is about risk, okay? Risk. Where are the risks in your business? But we'll get to that in a second because I'm going to give you a framework about what to do with risk. But I want to introduce the conversation first. So I have a dog. Her name is Kylie. She's a little cavoodle. She is as cute as a button. She's not very big. She's totally spoilt and indulged. And we have another cat called Jason. So if you're wondering where the name Kylie came from, it's pigeon pair with Jason. So for those who are old enough to remember Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan, that's where it came from. Okay. So anyway, one night I'm taking Kylie for a walk. I wouldn't say night. It's probably more like dusk. It was still light enough to see. And I'm taking Kylie for a walk. And I don't know what we had fed her the day before, but honestly, it kind of agreed with her because on the way, throughout the whole walk along, the whole route that we typically walk along, she had explosive diarrhea. And when I say explosive diarrhea, I'm talking like a little dog producing a magnitude of order of poo that you just would not expect from such a small animal. And it was foul. And when I say foul, I mean like eye-watering, gross, foul. And so the problem is I had plastic bags with me. I know what a good responsible dog owner would do, and that would be to try and pick it up and to clean it up. But in the moment, I failed as a dog owner, and I did the next best thing, and I got a stick and I covered it and disguised it with leaves and soil and other things like that so that no one would ever know that there was this landmine lurking beneath the surface. The problem is that some poor soul is going to walk along the same walking path and step in that, and it's going to be catastrophic for them. I don't know whether I should be laughing or feeling guilty, but anyway, a little bit of both. So anyway, we had a dog poo incident, and honestly, poor little Kylie, she was crapping her heart out. Anyway, so what's that got to do with your dental practice? Well, the thing that has to do with your dental practice is often landmines in your practice, things lurking beneath the surface that if you step on could blow up and put poo all over you and go everywhere, right? Things that blow up in a very spectacular way, and it's uncomfortable and difficult to deal with afterwards. And so some of the landmines that you might experience in your practice could be around key person risk. You've got all your revenue tied up with either yourself or someone else. You get sick, they leave, whatever happens, huge part of your revenue walks out the door. Maybe you've got a lot of intellectual property tied up in the head of your practice manager, and that's a key person risk as well. So if they leave or get sick, then the place ceases to function. But other risks could be around the security of your lease. Have you got tenure where your premises are? It could be around suppliers. It could be around your preferred provider relationship. What happens if one of the insurance companies sets up their own practice across the road? All of these things can occur and do occur. And so as a business owner, one of the things you constantly need to be doing is surveying your environment for risk, okay? And then thinking about what to do about that. So in this episode today, I want to introduce you to a 3-step framework for dealing with risk, okay? So the first step is you got to identify the risk. And what that means is think about all the different elements of your business, whether it's the day-to-day operations, your marketing, your case acceptance, your team, your suppliers, all those sorts of things, and ask yourself, where are the hazards in each of these areas of my business? What are the things that could go wrong? And it's probably the only time in your life I'm going to ask you to be a little bit pessimistic and a little bit like Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh, always seeing the world as a bit glum. And so I want you to start thinking about all the things that could go wrong to identify these risks. And once you've identified the risks, we need to quantify the risks. And so when we quantify the risk, we want to firstly understand how likely this risk is to occur. And secondly, what's the impact or the cost of it should it occur. And so we need to get really clear about those things. Now, obviously, a risk that you've identified that it has a high probability of occurring as well as a high impact in a negative sense is something that you're going to need to address really, really urgently, okay? But equally, there'll be some risks that they might have a high impact, but it's very, very unlikely to occur. So again, we've got to look at all of these things and plot them onto a risk matrix regarding likelihood and cost and identify which are the most severe risks. Once we've identified those risks and we've quantified the impact and the likelihood of those risks occurring, we then need to set about mitigating those risks, which means we need to think about how could we reduce the likelihood of it occurring and how could we reduce the impact of it should we occur. What are the remedial strategies that we could put in place to make sure that we are reducing both the likelihood and the impact of that? And when you go through this process, you might need to think about, well, what are the systems I need? What's the backup redundancy I need? Who do I need to hire to plug this hole in the organization? Where do I need to diversify my patient flow? How do I need to improve my case acceptance across the board so it's not reliant on any one person? How do I need to have more people producing more of the revenue so that it's not concentrated around any one or two providers, whether it's you or someone else? All of these questions need to be coming up for you. And this is a really important point to understand, because when you think about it, yes, identifying risks and quantifying risks and mitigating risks is really important for your day-to-day operations. And we get that because you don't want to be the one that steps in the dog poo, right? Because that's going to end badly. But on top of that, if you can get this right, it's going to add enormous value to your practice, because the way that you calculate value is the repeatable, sustainable earnings times a multiple. And the multiple is influenced by, firstly, the growth potential of the practice, but equally the risks that lie within that practice and how well they've been effectively identified, quantified, and mitigated. So if you can get this right, yes, your day-to-day operations are going to be smoother, easier, and more enjoyable, but you're also adding value to the business in the long run. So remember, when it comes to the landmines, they are there. They are lurking below the surface, much like Kylie's poo, just covered up in some leaves and it's disguised. And it's only when you kind of stop to look for it or you step on it that you realize that that risk was always there all along. So make sure you spend some time to identify the risks, then quantify them, and then put in place a risk mitigation strategy. All right, gang. So I want to move into the question and answer section now. We have a question that's coming from Sarah in Perth. And Sarah's writing that she's exhausted and burnt out. And she says, I love dentistry, but I don't know if I love this anymore, this being practice ownership. Is this all there is? So Sarah, I want to begin by saying thank you for asking that question. It takes a lot of courage to ask that question, and I guarantee you there'll be tons of people on the call who are asking themselves the same question. And look, here's the honest truth. The burnout that you're experiencing isn't because of dentistry, the clinical work, because you can do that. You can do it with your eyes closed, down in your head, no problems, right? The burnout comes from building a business that hasn't been designed around your life. And the reality is you've really got a job that's masquerading as a business. And when you have that, it means you can't switch off, you can't leave it, you can't hand it over, you can't even take a holiday without interruption. And so the question I'd really ask you to consider is, what would need to be true for this practice to actually give me energy rather than to drain my energy? Or what would need to be true for this practice to support my life rather than consume my life? And the reason I'm asking you to start there, Sarah, is because most people get it wrong. Most people start with a random bunch of tactics. And all that happens is you get busier, but you're often busy doing the wrong things. And so what I want you to start with is by thinking, what do I really want? If I could create my practice by design rather than by default, what is it that I'd create for myself? So here's the big thing, Sarah, is your practice is fixable, but the very first thing you need to be clear about is, what do I really want? And then align your resources around that. So I hope that helps for you. All right, gang, so that's it for today. Next month, we're going to be talking about the money side of the business. We're going to be talking the numbers. We're going to be talking about the systems and the processes that drive the financial performance of your business. I'm going to be sharing a story with you about dairy cows and beef cows and what that means for your practice, and it's going to change your thinking forever. So make sure you tune in next month when we unpack the financial performance, because here's the thing. Like Michael Filosi said in the episode a few months ago, if you want to be a practice owner, you got to make bank. And this next series of podcasts is going to be all about how you can make bank. So see you then. Take good care. Bye for now. Hey everyone, it's Jesse here. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the podcast. If you're looking for some more tools, some more insights, some more inspiration to help you create a practice that you love, as well as a life that you love, well, head across to savvydentist.com and check out all the goodies that we have there waiting for you right now.